today it's static. That's why we quickly, yesterday, had to give the position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gabriel, let me come to you as we get the sound bites of Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of the majority party, and his deputy Owen Baya here when they convened for their parliamentary group meeting at the Windsor Hotel. How important is it to have the office of the official opposition leader? To what extent will it embolden our governance?
In fact, Ayub, you know, the guarantee for multipartism actually gave credence to having a very strong opposition. Because the minute you have a multi-party system, it means you will have winners and you'll have losers. And that's why you give credence to the office of the official opposition. Now, I'm liking this has been a debate all the way since we started talking, you know, a few years back, even BBI, when, you know, it was being proposed. That office came with a lot of weight. And like Diane had said earlier on, I think somewhere along the way, with things like the handshake or being too cozy with leadership, that office really was somewhat started disintegrating. Because what I would have expected by now is for that office to be strengthened. And I'm liking the president has actually instituted people to look into it, strengthen it, and give it enough resources for them to be able to indeed do the work that they're supposed to do, and that is to watch out and to oversight government. Now, when you look at how other areas are run, great democracies, by now you'd have found that with coming in of the new administration, the opposition should by now already have set a shadow kind of government. You would be having shadow cabinet secretaries. And this is in line with bringing issues to the fore per each stipulated, ministry. If this is, there's an agenda that does not sit well or is not balancing well with the people, the shadow cabinet within the office of the opposition, or within the leader of opposition, would bring these things to the fore. And that is how accountability, can come to light. And democracy in itself it can be said that democracy in Kenya is safe. And so I think many people would encourage, particularly the people who are so in tune in politics, would encourage a very strong office of the opposition leader. But we still must be very mindful of what we saw happening in 2027. And I think when you see things like the Kamukunji now, the meetings that are being called upon, many people are feeling a little bit itchy because they feel it may lead to a handshake. Now, the pronouncements of the deputy president come out strongly to advocate against what we saw happening. And it's true, when the handshake happened, really, Dan has put it very correctly, people did not know who to go to. They did not know who to hold to account. You did not know who was in the opposition. In fact, at one point, the current president called it a mongrel sort of government. And I think that is what we need to be, to run away from. Okay, and to that effect, then let's get this soundbite from the Kikuyu Member of Parliament, who is the leader of the majority party in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, and his deputy Owen Baya here when they convened for their parliamentary group meeting, in effect, to the creation of the office of the official opposition leader.
I remember President Mwai Kibaki at one point was the leader of official opposition. President Uhuru Kenyatta was a very ineffective leader of official opposition. And then look at what happened then and what happened with the handshake. And if you're talking about muzzling and being cheeky, the cheekiness and muzzling of the opposition came with the handshake.
To have an accountable system in a democracy, then you need a strong opposition. An opposition that is formal, an opposition that is well-resourced, an opposition that has avenues to reach government and also engage in the national dialogue.
Honorable Owen Baya, it's you over there.
Yes.
And I understand there is also a proposal by the president, an idea that he had since February this year when he was at Chatham House in London in the United Kingdom when he met bureaucrats before the elections.
Yes.
How important is it from the Kenya Kwanza perspective to have this domiciled and have an official opposition leader's office?
You see, the office of official opposition is very key for the democratization of this country and to strengthen democracy. Because democracy is about the minority and the majority. The minority need to have their say. But how do you ensure that they can formally engage? For example, today, if Raila was formally a formal opposition leader in this country, then he would ask Speaker Mturi for an opportunity for him to come to Parliament and address Parliament. So that this dialogue does not happen in Kamkunji, but it happens in Parliament. If Raila was official opposition leader, who would call the president and say, in my capacity as official opposition leader, as per the Constitution,
all right,
I would like to have an appointment and discuss these issues with you. And he would have that opportunity. And he would come to Jamhuri events, and he would be recognized as official leader and sit there and have his chance to speak to Kenyans. And also hold this government to account. And if we give him that position, we will give him infrastructure where he can have his shadow cabinet ministers, he can have his shadow as official opposition, and government in waiting, because official opposition means government in waiting. Therefore, you can have robust discussion and engagement with government and criticize government and give an alternative view. I remember during the time when we had the former system, when the Minister for Finance tables his estimates in Parliament, the shadow cabinet minister for finance would also table his estimate. A good check and balance system that helps this country grow. And that's why the president in Chatham House, I was with him in Chatham House, and he was very clear about this. Let's set up that office so that we give other people an opportunity to air their views officially within official channels and even without official channels, and be able to go out there and criticize government so that we can have checks and balances. The president is bringing 4 proposals.
Okay.
I think they'll be read tomorrow. One, to have ministers come to Parliament.
Okay.
That is one of the proposals that he is bringing to Parliament. So, because he wants to encourage accountability. Now, this accountability, when this minister comes to Parliament and says what he wants to say, if he's a minister for energy, then a shadow cabinet minister for energy should counter or give better proposals so this country moves forward. So this whole infrastructure about bringing in official leader of opposition is also countered on the other side of bringing cabinet secretaries to Parliament. He is also bringing in another one on the gender issue. You remember the Supreme Court pronounced itself on the
dissolution of Parliament.
Yes, two-thirds gender rule. So he says there is an indictment on Parliament that should be dissolved because of this. Now we are in that situation where we are actually operating when this order still exists. So how do we pattern this one out? So he's also bringing in a proposal to Parliament on the same, and then he's also bringing in a proposal on the CDF that it should be anchored on the Constitution. So 4 proposals. I think Speaker Wetangula will read those messages from the president tomorrow in Parliament. What does that tell you about William Ruto? He is a president who is keen at ensuring there's accountability in his government.
Right.
That is 1. And 2, to follow the rule of law. Now, we would like also to have an opposition leader, and I would like to speak to Raila Odinga, be like William Ruto. He wants the rule of law to prevail in this country. But you can't be destroying that infrastructure he's trying to put in place by going out there in those demos and all those. Instead of having 30 days of street battles, why doesn't he call a national conference at Uhuru Park, at KICC? So that leaders like John Langapo here, who belong, you start the dialogue with the leaders within Azimio first.
Okay, you're within the framework of your constituent party. Before you go to Diane then, is the proposal with regards to the support it has from you now, the ruling alliance, not akin to what was proposed in the Building Bridges initiative?
Well, I would like to say this. What William Ruto, even when he opposed the Building Bridges initiative, he said, actually, Bomas, they are good proposals. You remember that his speech? They are good proposals in this BBI. But you see, it's like a poison chalice, you know. So he has picked some of the good proposals. And one of them is official opposition. It's there. The other one is CDF. And the other one is on the gender mainstreaming issues.
So you have cherry-picked on what's most important?
Yes, so that this country moves forward.
Okay, but generally he was dead against the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. Diane, I come to you. When you talk about the insistence on the creation of the office of the official opposition leader, then you have the gender aspect by Honorable Owen Baya, who speaks as the deputy leader of the majority party. And then you have CSS, who the president, when he hosted them during their first meeting after the election, said amend the standing order so that CSS can come to Parliament for accountability purposes. Does that inspire confidence to the rule of law and constitutionalism?
I think it takes us back to the fact that we passed a constitution. I don't think we were ever ready for this constitution because we are firmly moving back to a parliamentary system of government. The executive and the legislature were supposed to be very, very distinct. And at that point, it was one of the ways to ensure that we curb any incestuous relationships between these two arms of government. And they were supposed to be very separate. These elections, at some point, I was excited, but the mathematics refused because Azimio at some point was supposed to be leader of majority. Kenya Kwanza had significant numbers. So we were looking at a situation where we may finally test the presidential system of government. A presidential system of government means that whereas Kenya Kwanza is the leader of majority business in parliament, they are so independent from the executive that they will receive those proposals, interrogate them on the basis of their mandate, give back feedback, okay? Parliamentary group meetings with the executive would have to take a different format because we are not being given the agenda, we are questioning and inputting it. But that does not seem to have worked. And if you think about it, we have Governor Lonyangapo here. I don't know whether, let's take this to West Pokot, and there is Governor Kachapin there. Why isn't Governor going there for public protest? Would we make the same argument for leader of opposition? Or he waits patiently for the next 5 years? What is it at the national level that we have not figured out that we have to keep inputting and changing our systems of government to have a leader of opposition, resource them, and then ensure they come to parliament with ministers and so on? The center is holding too much power to date.
Okay, and you have talked about...
And that's problematic.
Okay.
So even if you create leader of opposition, let's remember we have 48 governments in this country.
Okay, 47 counties and one national government.
Yes, okay. In total 48, one Kenya. Are we going to have the same model across the 48 governments? One national government, 47 county government, have the same grievances emerged? And even think about some of the counties where the elections were very, very closely contested. What must we learn from counties and take it to the national level to make these work?
Okay.
Does our system, if then we are saying the presidential system of government and that distinct separation of power does not work, then let's have this dialogue and come back. It's also how we've been socialized, myself included. I knew leader of opposition, and we would go and caucus them. When we made the shift, how prepared were we to engage under the new dispensation?
Okay.
12 years
after the promulgation of the Constitution. Prof, I come to you. How impacting will it be? Will it be to have the office of the official opposition leader in Kenya?
I don't know how we are going to do it. If I may bring this chronology. Have you noted that we have been having every 5 years different political parties coming? Almost same presidential candidates, almost different
parties.
That's where our problem lies. When I was in Senate, and I attempted, and I will ask my brother in Parliament to see whether they can introduce it. This idea of allowing a champion like Lonyangapo to wake up and form his party, which I did because I saw things were not working. I was being oppressed, and things were not working for us. Has it yet reached a time where all of us must reason as Kenya? Can we come up with, look for these constitutional lawyers and very serious, prominent people within and without, where we can chart our political party's destiny, the way England did. You know, in Britain, there are only 2 major political parties, escorted by one only, about 3. And that's where we modeled our leadership and our politics for many years. America, which we seem to be copying now, has 2, plus one other escorting. And America is a continent. Now, Kenya, a little country, has more political parties and has more opportunities to change anytime you want than any other one. That's where our problem lies. And I'm going to ask my brother and those one who are sitting, is it time now yet? Maybe it's now time when we can be blunt and bold enough to have a commission that will go and collect around the whole country views of Kenyans, so that we can have 2 or at most 3 political parties with different beliefs. The only linking point is where we talk about the unity of our people and keeping us as one. But the rest, you can be leftist, rightist. That is where we are going to have this, because we are now beating around the bush, trying to do what should have been done earlier. And then when you talked about, see it from that perspective, this will only be cured if we, and I can see this proposal from the president and his team should be embraced by everybody, where we are beginning almost quickly to say, can we start with Parliament, where we should, can we start with, what happens to the team leader who was leading the second strongest, the option of government? Do you die immediately just like that?
Okay.
We should be able to think about it, so that who will carry the views of the almost the millions who supported the Azimio? Who will carry the views? Do we leave it to Parliament? And Parliament, as you can see, is only a leader of minority or a leader of... So to me, we should be now reach a point where we should task our people we have elected. And not only that, we also found we have people like them.
Yes.
We can have a very serious dialogue around it. Civil society, serious dialogue about it. Just like we introduced the same constitution, I was at PS that time when we were introducing this current constitution.
Yes.
There were people who rejected it. There are people who accepted it. And what became of those who rejected it? Why did we lose their views? Is it not time yet that we were able to introduce now those people who rejected maybe at a point on a particular clause?
Okay.
So on, so on.
Gabriel, Professor introduces the concept of the blend of the lacking ideologies and policies that withhold our political parties because of the low shelf life that we have experienced, including Ruling Jubilee Party, despite the pompous launch in 2016 now, with only mere 26 members of parliament out from 100 plus. And what's then the point? Because there seems to be no longevity as anticipated, and 2, how helpful or consequential will be by virtue of creation of the office of the official opposition leader?
Ayub, I think that should be the heart of this engagement this morning. Having stronger political parties. And you remember, I've been an avid supporter of major parties. I liked when we had Jubilee and we had CORD at one point. And I thought that anybody wanting to join a political party will do so based on what this particular group believes in. So I am joining your party not just because of your manifesto, no, but your core beliefs as a party. What do you see this country in the next 50, 100 years? All right? We have ANC. We have the Tanzania, the party in Tanzania, CCM. We have the Republicans like Mheshimiwa Hashput. We have the Democrats. I mean, these are functional parties that have systematic core beliefs that any person waking up and feeling that, to me, this aligns very well with what I would like to see, you join that party. The problem we seem to be having, and Jubilee is a very good example. Look at where it started. At one point, it had actually a near, not even a near, it had a super majority, both in the House, in the Senate, and the Council of Governors. Look at where it is today, that the leader of that party today is a chairman of an opposition party who was a sitting president. It is actually confusing, to say the least. All right? It goes on to show that we do not believe in what you call the political party structures. Because if it were, you believe in the dream that you started out with. Because that, to you, is the stepping stone to making better and greater things of the Republic. So I think what we need to emphasize is come up with a framework. And I like where the former governor of West Pokot said, we need to start looking deep into ensuring that we come up with a very strong platform in this country to ensure that we have 2 to 3 major political parties. And then you funnel them, depending on the leadership of those parties. You funnel and strengthen them in such a way that any person leaving high school will understand what you stand for. Any young person looking to be in a political realm will understand what you stand for. And I think great parties make great countries. Now, the current president sets himself apart because this is what he was calling for. Anything else, the village politics, so many parties that I can wake up today and say, you know, myself, my cousin will be the secretary to the party, my grandfather will be the chairman of this political party. Yes, it is trying, but it's not taking us anywhere. What is actually doing is localizing. We've become so localized that you have so many parties that the entire democratic space is confused.
Okay, Honorable Owen Baya, how then do we arrive at a point of convergence of having parties that embody the beliefs of Kenyans, the aspirations of Kenyans, and their needs? And do you agree with the proposals as proposed by the Professor and Gabriel, having major, let's say 3 major political parties?
I agree with what Prof is talking about. This country requires a cleaning up of the political party system. I think the idea of the political parties bill, act, and strengthen it, and even putting money there, you know, that is they are resourced by government, was in a way to try to strengthen political parties and bring in all parties so that you're a big party. And that is why we have an office of the registrar of political parties to regulate how political parties move forward. But what has happened is that in Kenya, political parties are based on 2 things, tribal and personalities. Today, when you go to my background, you find that the former governor of Kilifi said, no, we also need a political party so that we can also get the national cake. So he formed his party. Somebody else.
And he has got it.
Yes. Professor also said, because I was frustrated in that party and I didn't see myself, he formed his own political party. So personalities. In fact, if you ask Professor, why did you form this party based on ideology or on a belief? Or he said, no, because I was frustrated where I was, and that's why I formed a political party. So personalities come up and form political party. If you go to Northeastern, UDM, Governor Roba said, no, even me, I want a political party so that I can approach the national cake. He formed his own political party. So personalities, Kenyan political parties are formed on the basis of personalities. But the Political Parties Act was put in place to actually structure that space so that we end up with strong parties. The current president believes in strong parties, one big political party in the country. I refuse the temptation to belong to a village political party and emerged the only person that was elected.
Which is?
Everybody wanted me to join the MAPA, the local
Pamoja Africa Alliance.
Yes, Pamoja African Alliance. But I said no. I said, I think I need to make a contribution at the national stage and I don't want to be localized. So I moved on with my politics that way and I got to where I am. And I think this country requires strong political parties that are not based on personalities, so that we have a succession plan and all that. Because today, if Raila Odinga is not there, will ODM exist?
Okay, you raise a very fundamental point. Before we go to Diane, and we sample some of the feedback on Twitter, you have mentioned two very critical aspects and which border each other. That is the question of personalities and tribal identity and belonging. Whilst we appreciate that, I mean, and this is a question that I also put to the former deputy president, who is now the president at his current residence. I mean, look at the promises made by the Jubilee Party in September 2016, a party they said will end ethnic balkanization, unify the country, will have members across board with no regard for religious or ethnic affiliation. But that was a distinct, or there was a dichotomy when we had journeyed into 2022 with only paltry 26 members of parliament, a party that was shot by about 62 members to have an absolute majority in the National Assembly. I mean, and continuity is the watchword here. What do you think this portends for the United Democratic Alliance Party and Kenya Kwanza by extension as to the longevity and the long political shelf life that we ought to be having? Because you talked about institutional memory of the parties. Can President Ruto end the hoodoo and hold the party together?
I think what I see the future of UDA is that it will probably take over from where ODM is. You know, ODM today is the longest, the part with the longest shelf life, as we are today. And because the leader there has held on to the party and probably has an ideology that many people believe in. William Ruto's idea of political parties, if you see him moving from UDM to URP and eventually to Jubilee and to UDA, I think he has this idea that this country needs to be solidified around political parties that have ideologies, that people are held together, not because of a person, but because we have an ideology. And that is why he came up with this thing of hustlers. You know, hustlers built, the hustler narrative built UDA. The people believed in it. Today, there are people who do not look at UDA as belonging to this tribe or this. They see themselves as only one tribe. They're hustlers. And therefore, they belong to that. Ideological difference between one political party and the other will move people and will give longevity to political parties. And I think this is also what our president believes in. Thank you. And I am a strong believer of national political parties which need to be strengthened. I have lived briefly in the United States and I have seen. By the way, Prof, you have more than 20 parties in the United States. More than 20 parties in the United States.
Only 3.
But you have only the Republicans, the Democrats that are recognized in more than 50 states. But the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and I think there's another small party there that are recognized in around 20 states. But they're there. But they do not play a significant role at the national level. But they play a significant part at the local, the state level. And that's what we need to do. We need to have, you can have your party, Prof. It is significant in West Pokot and all that. And come to the national level.
Thank you. Painting a well picture of how established political parties are progressing in their countries, and including the Conservatives with the Tories in the UK and the Labour Party. There are Lib Dems and other parties in the UK, the SNP, and also the Scottish Party, also in the United States. But again, Diane, I come to you on this. There is less synchronized efforts when it comes to our context here. We seem to be starting on a note of many promises and pledges. The picture is good, pompous, kick-starting, but they die down. I mean, how can that be addressed? Because Honorable Owen is giving us an assurity that President Ruto will be a different political operator altogether. But will that be the reality come 2027, in your view?
Highly unlikely, but I think it all boils down to the fact that we do not have political parties. We have political leaders. And I think in currently all our known leaders, we can ascribe 2-3 political parties to them. Owen, you've listed the parties that the president has been part of. Raila, the same thing, we can list 4 or 5 parties. And based on that, it is therefore personal promises, not if we get genuine leaders who get into offices, they can become institutionalized, but for that period. So political parties would really help us. But before I go into that, let me speak into the 3 things that the president is bringing to Parliament. 1, ministers will now come to the National Assembly. Previously, they would be summoned. So are we saying they will be coming on their own volition, okay, as opposed to the summons? I have petitioned the National Assembly, and particularly through Honorable Owen, to summon a number of CSs. So when they come of their, that would, I'm not, the clarity on whether it is a higher level of accountability, or is it that we expect this particular cabinet wants to really engage with the National Assembly and the Senate, and that is why they are offering themselves? Or is it already a shift to the parliamentary system? So that one I'm not very clear. The gender principle, if Ruto resolve this one,
okay.
If finally we have 2/3, the headline here, I say the judges are worried about the Supreme Court,
okay,
where we have 3 women judges and 4. So they are worried that we can upset the 2/3 there in favor of women, okay? I look forward to the day we'll have that discomfort.
Even
at the National Assembly,
okay,
in the executive and the other areas.
Okay.
So that would be something that they resolve. CDF, allow me to mention CDF.
Briefly.
Briefly, because then it is now being anchored in the Constitution. And this comes after a Supreme Court ruling that has made members of Parliament a bit uncomfortable. This is a beautiful community fund that helps to bring some level of equalization, particularly in the area of access to education.
Thank you.
However, it brings serious clashes with the oversight role of Parliament. And the Supreme Court then guided us on how to ensure that if we run such a fund, we respect the Constitution.
Thank you.
So a very good moment for us to do this. But if you look at these 3 things, leader of opposition, minister comes to Parliament, gender principle, CDF, and a constitutional review moment. Just look what has happened here. I foresee by the time we are going to get signatures, we will not be collecting signatures for minister comes to Parliament.
Thank you.
It will be CDF.
Thank you, Dan. I get your point. Thank you so much. So we haven't been doing this conversation alone, so let's sample your feedback on Twitter, and beginning with what you have sent at Citizen TV Kenya, at Ayub Abdikadir, and at Safin_Achieng. Evans Wanyela1 says, I agree with Professor John Lonyangapuo that the opposition coalition should not organize rallies and demonstrations, but instead look for other ways and avenues to air their grievances. Bob Otieno Wino says the so-called consultative meetings, rallies, or be it demonstrations won't bear any fruits, as already 2 of the Cherera 4 IEBC commissioners have already resigned. Athanas Mavuti1 says every political rally always leads to loss of revenue, because I know without any fear of contradiction, businesses around Kamukunji today will not open. Government should deal with this firmly. Magwa23 says the tribunal should not lie its weight on one side of the IEBC commissioners. It should inquire about both sides. Chebukati is not a saint. He bungled the 2017 elections, and issues of trust about him have been raised in these elections. And Godi Barasawere says the Azimio la Umoja Coalition Party have a perfect and effective platform to convey their strong message through Parliament. As things are in the country at the moment, we can't afford to have demos that might destabilize peace, business, and prosperity. And this is what Kenyans have said. 30 seconds each closing remarks. May I begin with you, Diane, for purposes of gender balance?
It's the only one.
I will go back. It feels like we are creating a constitutional moment. As we create that constitutional moment, let us use it for the greater good of the country and the people, and not just for power and political interest.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
We will engage robustly.
Thank you. Yes, Prof, to you.
To me, what is coming out clearly, we are ripe as a nation for a very serious dialogue and dispensation for which we must deal once and for all with our political parties and movement, so that it's not individual driven. We must agree to establish as a people of Kenya for now and in future 2 or 3 political parties, period, and assign what they believe in. So that when you are born, you choose a party to belong to because you know how to read and write.
Okay.
Yes.
Will you be willing to resolve yours in...
If Kenyans, definitely, if Kenyans agree and come up with that dispensation,
yes,
I am telling you, otherwise we will, otherwise, when you are frozen in the political coal, you will form your party.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
well, I think, Ayub, the elephant in the room is obviously the committee that has been set, or to look into the matters IBC, that the commission, and I think the tribunal. Many people I know have been poking holes, and you've had most of our viewers or the people in Azimio. Everybody at these points, somebody will tell you one thing or the other will tell you something different.
Thank you.
To me, I think what needs to happen is truth must come out. And we should not take this thing lightly. There are so many things that would have gone wrong. We're just thankful that it didn't go that wrong.
Thank you.
So I think truth must come out, whether people resign or not. Things must go on. People must be brought to book. And should anything come out of it for every Kenyan, is the lessons that we are going to learn.
Thank you, Gabriel. Yes, Honorable Owen Baya.
Now, I want to say this. If any man wishes his president to fail, then that person wishes his country to fail. And that's not a very good person. I think we have an opportunity right now as a nation to consolidate ourselves and take off. I was reading, following some news yesterday, that Kenya is actually moving to the middle income, as a middle income country. That's a good thing for this country. Okay. But we cannot be, a World Bank is saying Kenya is ready to move to the middle income country.
Thank you.
But here we are busy pulling the rug of our economic, yes.
Okay.
It can't happen like that.
Thank you.
Let's put ourselves together as Kenyans and wish for the prosperity of this country and not to wish your president fail. Because if you wish your president to fail, you're wishing that your country fails.
Thank you. And we end it on that note. Diane Gashengo is the National Coordinator, the Institute of Social Accountability. Good morning, Diane. Thanks for making time. Professor George Lonyangapuo is the former Senator, the former Governor of West Pokot County. Thank you for your time and company. Gabriel Boduma, Political Social Commentator. Gabriel, good morning. Thanks for making time. Honorable Owen Baya is the Kilifi North Member of Parliament, who as well doubles up as the Deputy Leader of the Majority Party at the National Assembly. Your time is all appreciated.
Thank you very much.
And we thank you. And thank you to you too for watching the broadcast and waking up with us here on Daybreak. And we thank you. Your company, it's worthy, and therefore feel appreciated. Up next is Safin_Chieng, or Safina Chieng, who will be on and up with health and lifestyle. She will be talking to clinical oncologist Dr. Catherine Nyongesa here on the broadcast after the break. Stay tuned for that. And good morning from my side. Bye-bye.